The galaxy had watched humanity for centuries and laughed. Observers catalogued Earth species with detached amusement, noting every flaw: fragile biology, slow reflexes, tiny starships, a stubborn adherence to survival over sophistication. The verdict was unanimous: irrelevant. Containment was unnecessary. Threat level minimal. And yet, for the first time, a single act so insignificant to them would rewrite every projection, every calculation, and every assumption about humanity's place in the cosmos. It started with a small skirmish at the edge of the Orion Rift, where a fleet of human exploratory vessels had been intercepted by the Zorvith Collective, a species renowned for ruthless efficiency and unmatched firepower. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and predicted to surrender in minutes. The Collective's commanders anticipated an easy demonstration of superiority, a routine show of force to remind the galaxy who dictated terms. They did not account for curiosity, the defining trait of humanity's reaction to absurd odds. Captain Mara T of the human vessel Resolute saw the looming enemy formation and the shimmering overlay of plasma arrays, the cold efficiency of Zorvith targeting systems. They were already counting hits, already predicting the outcome. Mara smiled. She called over her comms, voice calm but deliberate. "Hold my beer." The crew laughed nervously. It was a phrase no alien would understand, but its weight was in the intent, not the words. This was the human moment of choice, where irrational audacity became strategy. The first salvo arrived, a searing curtain of ionized particles designed to cripple the human formation before it could respond. Conventional protocol dictated evasive maneuvers, surrender, or surrender disguised as delay. Mara ignored all three. She initiated a high-risk maneuver that defied every probability model, a synchronized oscillation of the fleet through the plasma field. Exploiting interference patterns the Zorvith targeting software could not calculate. Ships twisted in impossible arcs, shields flaring as each impact redirected energy across adjacent vessels. The effect was immediate and terrifying. The Zorvith beams overcompensated, colliding with one another, creating micro-explosions within their own formation. The Collective's command vessel registered the anomaly, then recalculated, but the humans were already beyond the first predicted corridor. Mara ordered a chain reaction of coordinated counterattacks using what little armament they had: mines, decoy drones, and improvised energy bursts. Each strike was not lethal on its own, but combined, it forced enemy systems into recursive overdrive algorithms. The Zorvith Collective's command algorithms struggled to compensate. Every adjustment the humans made invalidated a dozen predictive models. Shields fluctuated, energy conduits were routed, and targeting arrays recalibrated in panic. What had been calculated as inevitable destruction transformed into chaos. Human ingenuity, improvisation, and audacity traits dismissed as inconsequential broke the enemy's carefully constructed equilibrium. Mara's fleet moved as one entity, a living organism, each ship responding instinctively to the others, amplifying their effect through coordinated improvisation. No single calculation could anticipate it, no simulation could contain it, and the Collective had never faced anything like it. From the observation decks of their distant command station, the Zorvith analysts stared in disbelief. The humans were supposed to be weak, predictable, and finite in their tactical scope. They were not. Every evasive maneuver, every counterattack, every improvised tactic revealed layers of adaptability, understanding, and raw courage the Collective could not model. Probabilities shifted from near-zero survival to outright defiance of expectation. For the first time, the term outlier no longer sufficed. The humans were rewriting what it meant to be a variable in galactic conflict. Mara pushed her fleet harder. She did not seek revenge, not yet, but opportunity. Human strategy was not about measured efficiency. It was about exploiting assumptions. When one Zorvith frigate tried to flank them through a hypergravitational corridor, Mara anticipated the move before it was executed, directing a single decoy drone to intercept the trajectory. The resulting detonation ricocheted plasma energy into the flank, crippling the ship without a single human vessel taking damage. The collective's fleet faltered, confusion spreading as their calculations repeatedly failed. The humans were improvising in ways their adversaries could not perceive. Ships that appeared weak were being used as catalysts, shielded by calculated exposure to redirect enemy fire. Mara's flagship, the Resolute, engaged in synchronized micromaneuvers with escort vessels, creating energy ripples that disrupted enemy targeting. The collective's weapons became as much a threat to themselves as to the humans. Observers predicted total annihilation in minutes. Instead, the annihilation of expectation occurred. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew moved with instinctive confidence. No one hesitated. Each decision, each action, was a precise combination of human judgment and raw intuition. Systems analysts adapted code mid-engagement. Engineers rerouted power in seconds. And gunners fired with a synchronization that even the most advanced AI could not replicate. The human capacity for creativity under pressure was being weaponized, not through technology, but through sheer audacity, instinct, and relentless refusal to follow the expected path. By the time the first half hour had passed, the collective fleet was in disarray. Command channels were flooded with error reports and contradictory instructions. Ships collided under miscalculated maneuvers. Defensive shields overloaded and self-destructed in controlled panic. The humans had not merely survived, they had forced the enemy into retreat, creating openings no one thought possible. Mara glanced at her crew, knowing the outcome was not yet secure, but recognizing that the galaxy was watching. And the precedent had been set. When humans decide to act, the rules themselves bend. The galaxy, in distant observation, registered the anomaly. Automated threat systems flagged the event at the highest level. Human engagement, threat level, maximum. Calculations ran again and again. No algorithm could predict the next move. Humanity had become the unknown variable, the chaotic constant, the force that every species feared, yet had not fully comprehended. The message was clear. The humans were no longer to be underestimated. Mara smiled faintly, her voice calm but resolute. "Hold my beer," she said again, and the fleet surged forward, not in surrender, not in fear, but in command of the impossible. The Zorvith collective scrambled to regroup, but the humans had already rewritten the battlefield. Every maneuver Mara executed, every trajectory she calculated, created ripples that forced the enemy to react, and every reaction became an opportunity. The humans were improvising on a scale the galaxy had never seen, blending instinct with strategy, improvisation with precision, creating effects that no simulation could predict. Energy discharges from their improvised countermeasures tore through enemy formations, not by brute force, but by exploiting patterns the collective assumed were unbreakable. On board the Resolute, the bridge was alive with controlled chaos. Engineers rerouted power mid-engagement, amplifying shield harmonics to create overlapping fields that deflected plasma bolts back into enemy lines. Weapon officers anticipated enemy corrections before they occurred, targeting weak points invisible to conventional sensors. Mara's calm voice threaded through the comms. "Adjust frequency on the dorsal array. Redirect flank vectors through the third corridor. Watch for chain reaction now." Every command was executed instinctively, and every crew member understood that hesitation could be fatal, but boldness could be revolutionary. The collective's flagship attempted to crush the human center, sending a wave of automated interceptors designed to overwhelm through numbers alone. The humans, however, turned expectation against them. Escort vessels drew fire into decoys, while drones manipulated the energy fields of the battlefield. Ships twisted in impossible arcs, slipping between plasma streams, using enemy momentum to their advantage. One miscalculation, one moment of hesitation, and the collective's own weapons became a threat to themselves. By the time the flagship recalculated, several frigates had been disabled, and panic rippled through the ranks in the observation decks of the collective. Scientists and strategists frantically recalculated threat levels. Algorithms screamed in contradiction. Predictions failed repeatedly. Every model underestimated the human capacity to turn disadvantage into leverage. Humanity was not merely surviving, it was converting every threat into a resource. Every attack, every pressure point, every assumed weakness was exploited with brutal efficiency. The galaxy had always measured humans by expected limitations, and every limitation had been shattered. Mara's fleet pressed forward, riding the chaos they created, and the humans began to gain psychological dominance as well. Enemy crews, trained to follow perfect calculations, found themselves disoriented, reacting to an opponent they could not predict. Orders conflicted, automated defenses failed to adapt in time, and even AI-driven algorithms misread the evolving battlefield. Humans were improvising at speeds and levels of creativity that had no precedent. The battlefield had become a theater of impossibility, and humanity was its conductor as the dust of plasma and energy arcs settled momentarily. The humans were unscathed, their formation intact but dynamically shifting. The collective had not experienced defeat in decades. Yet they had been forced to retreat, not through sheer firepower, but through ingenuity, adaptability, and the relentless audacity of a species that refused to submit to expectation. Across the galaxy, distant systems recorded the anomaly. Humans had turned predictable engagement into an unpredictable force multiplier. Automated monitoring systems escalated threat ratings to the maximum permissible level. Humanity had become the benchmark by which all galactic threats would now be measured. Mara leaned back slightly in her command chair, her eyes scanning the damage reports and fleet status. A subtle smile formed. "They still don't understand," she murmured. "They still don't understand what happens when humans decide to act." The Zorvith Collective had never witnessed such audacity. Their ships, the pinnacle of tactical design, now lay scattered and compromised, some drifting on autopilot, others disabled by cascading energy feedbacks they could neither predict nor counter. The humans did not celebrate their small victories. They did not even pause. Their focus was forward, anticipation running ahead of the enemy's calculations, creating an impression that their next move was inevitable, unstoppable, and unknowable at once. The galaxy had learned that humans did not merely adapt, they created new rules in real time. Mara ordered her fleet to advance through the fractured zone. Intercepting drones fired without precision. Plasma arcs tore gaps into the void. And yet the humans moved in a pattern of calculated improvisation, each vessel acting in concert without needing direct commands for every decision. The human mind had always been underestimated in its capacity to process chaos, to detect patterns in randomness, and to exploit it. What the collective had considered overwhelming odds were now their undoing. Every maneuver Mara executed multiplied the uncertainty, creating opportunities from the chaos the enemy itself generated. The collective's flagship attempted to recalibrate, initiating the orbital collapse of an asteroid field to create an impassable barrier. It was a brilliant move by conventional standards. But humans do not abide by conventional standards. Mara's fleet split, weaving through narrow gaps, anticipating gravitational vectors and the feedback loops of unstable rock masses. One human vessel nudged an asteroid with precisely calculated energy bursts, sending it tumbling into the path of a pursuing frigate. and the chain reaction spiraled across the enemy formation. Where the collective sought control, chaos became a weapon in human hands. On board the flagship Resolute, Mara's crew operated as extensions of a single consciousness. Engineers adjusted shield resonance frequencies in milliseconds. Gunners calculated impact points faster than the collective's targeting algorithms could predict. And navigators aligned vectors not by protocol, but by instinct and calculated improvisation. Every decision was fluid, responsive, adaptive, and audacious, a constant challenge to the very notion of predictability. Humanity's power was not in numbers, nor in technology, nor in brute force. It was in adaptability, cunning, and a fearless willingness to exploit the unexpected. Observers in distant systems recorded the escalation in real time. Automated galactic intelligence systems raised alerts, raising threat levels to unprecedented heights. Across communication arrays, warning protocols triggered. Human engagement detected. Threat level maximum. Priority. Universal containment recommended. No species had ever caused such a universal response, and no algorithm could determine what the humans would do next. The galaxy began to understand. When humans say, "Hold my beer," it is not just bravado, it is a declaration of inevitability. The collective, shaken and humiliated, attempted to regroup behind defensive energy fields. Their tactics were brilliant, precise, and ruthless, but the humans had anticipated them. Mara issued a single command: Phase Gamma through the collapse corridor. All units follow. Ships accelerated into the collapsing field, weaving through gravitational hazards and enemy fire alike, their movement turning the zone of destruction into a channel of advantage. The collective's fleet scrambled to respond, but each calculated action was countered by the humans' audacious improvisation. Each reaction opening new vulnerabilities, by the end of the engagement. The human fleet had not only survived, it had dictated the terms of the battlefield. The collective's forces were fractured, morale plummeting, their flagship narrowly escaping destruction. Across the galaxy, monitoring systems noted the anomaly, and the consensus was clear. Humanity could no longer be underestimated, contained, or ignored. The phrase maximum threat had never carried such literal and terrifying significance. Humans had proven that when they act, no calculation, no machine, and no force can reliably predict the outcome. Mara gazed at the stars ahead, calm and focused. She knew the galaxy had just witnessed a lesson it would never forget, and yet this was only the beginning. "Hold my beer," she said softly, and her crew understood. There were far greater challenges ahead, and humanity would meet them, as always, unafraid and unstoppable. The aftermath of the engagement reverberated across the galaxy like a shock wave. Star systems that had only observed humanity from a distance now recalculated threat matrices, adjusted defense postures, and deployed emergency protocols. Automated monitoring grids flagged human activity as anomalous, unpredictable, and overwhelmingly influential. Every civilization that had dismissed Earth's inhabitants as primitive now faced the uncomfortable reality. Humans did not merely react. They created consequences that could not be ignored, manipulated, or contained. The galaxy had underestimated them, and that miscalculation would cost anyone who tried to interfere. Mara's fleet, though exhausted from continuous maneuvering, showed no signs of hesitation. The humans had learned to move in sync not only with each other, but with the battlefield itself. Debris, gravitational anomalies, and residual plasma arcs became part of their strategic advantage. Where other species saw obstacles, the humans saw vectors, leverage points, and opportunities for improvisation. Each ship's course was dynamically adjusted in real time, not by algorithm alone, but through instinct refined by countless engagements. Even the most advanced Zorvath predictive systems could not account for the human capacity. to perceive patterns in chaos and exploit them. In distant command hubs, the collective scrambled to issue orders, but every maneuver failed to produce the intended result. Human countermeasures had anticipated their counters. Their ships, designed for brute strength and precise execution, faltered against unpredictability. Mara's crew exploited these failures ruthlessly yet efficiently. Small, targeted strikes destabilized shields, misdirected firepower, and disrupted communications. The humans did not destroy indiscriminately. They calculated outcomes, integrating danger into opportunity. Each action produced compounding effects that would ripple through the collective's forces for hours, days, and even cycles beyond the immediate engagement. On board the Resolute, Mara watched as her crew operated with the calm precision of a single organism. Engineers rerouted power to shields and weapons seamlessly. Navigators plotted paths that simultaneously avoided hazards and trapped enemies. Gunners executed strikes that seemed preternatural in timing. Human adaptability was not just physical, it was cognitive, instinctive, and relentless. Where the enemy assumed limits, the humans discovered freedom. Where the enemy relied on certainty, the humans exploited uncertainty. Every action was a proof that what was considered small, slow, or weak could become decisive when leveraged with audacity and intellect. The galaxy, through its sensors and simulations, could only observe as humans extended their influence beyond the battlefield. Ships that had been counted as casualties were repurposed. Drones that had been designed for defensive roles now functioned offensively, and environmental anomalies were transformed into strategic assets. Humans had turned the very limitations imposed by circumstance into tools of dominance. Mara's calm directive, "Hold my beer," was more than bravado. It had become doctrine. Reports from distant observers noted a pattern emerging. Wherever humans acted, systems intended to control, predict, or suppress behavior failed. Automated defenses misfired. AI calculations became unstable, and entire fleets hesitated under pressure because they could not anticipate what humans would do next. Humanity had become the ultimate variable, an unknown factor that destabilized everything it touched. Across the galaxy, this realization sparked fear, curiosity, and the beginning of a cautious, universal respect for Earth's people. As the human fleet pressed onward, Mara considered the implications. This engagement was not an isolated incident. It was a statement. The galaxy had been warned. Humans are not to be underestimated, ignored, or mocked. They adapt. They endure. They improvise. And when they decide to act, they transform everything around them. She allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The collective might survive the battle, but they would never again underestimate what it means when humans say, "Hold my beer." The galaxy itself seemed to respond to humanity's audacity. Sensor networks across hundreds of systems began signaling anomalies, unpredicted energy discharges, sudden gravitational shifts, and rogue vessel trajectories, all tied back to the humans' engagement at the Orion Rift. Every species that had once dismissed Earth as inconsequential now scrambled to understand what had occurred. Automated intelligence networks flagged human activity as a high-level, unpredictable catalyst, a designation previously reserved only for phenomena like supernova or rogue black holes. And yet, the humans were neither cosmic forces nor gods. They were alive, improvising, calculating, and utterly relentless. Mara's fleet pressed deeper into contested space. The collective's remnants had reorganized, desperate to reclaim control. But their every maneuver played into the humans' adaptive strategies. Human ships weaved through asteroid belts and plasma storms with precision born of instinct and practice, turning hazards into weapons. Small skirmishes erupted, each seemingly insignificant, yet every engagement produced exponential consequences. Ships disabled in one moment became leverage in the next. Enemy formations collapsed not because of overwhelming firepower, but because humans manipulated every variable they could touch. Within the Resolute, Mara observed her crew with a calm focus that belied the chaos around them. Engineers worked seamlessly, rerouting power through compromised systems to amplify both shields and weapons. Tactical officers anticipated enemy countermeasures before they were even enacted, predicting deviations in algorithms that were thought infallible. The humans did not simply react, they dictated the terms of engagement, forcing the collective into errors that compounded with every second. What the galaxy had long believed was predictability was shattered. The humans thrived within uncertainty, exploiting it with precision, audacity, and brutal efficiency. The collective's flagship attempted a desperate counterattack, unleashing a volley of hypervelocity projectiles designed to saturate the human fleet. Mara's response was instantaneous. She adjusted shield harmonics to redirect energy flows, ordered drones to create interference patterns that caused projectiles to collide mid-space, and rerouted navigational thrusters to exploit the momentum of the assault. What was meant to be a devastating strike instead became a self-inflicted disruption, fracturing enemy coordination and isolating their ships for targeted neutralization. Humans were converting danger into opportunity at a rate no species had ever witnessed. Across the galaxy, observation arrays registered a new threat paradigm. Humans operating at this level could not be modeled, contained, or predicted. Every engagement, every calculated risk, every improvisation contributed to a pattern that defied analysis. The Zorvath Collective's automated command systems were now issuing red alerts across interstellar sectors, the highest possible threat classification. Mara's simple, defiant phrase, "Hold my beer," had transcended humor or bravado. It had become a symbol of inevitability, a declaration that human ingenuity could not be constrained. The humans moved with unrelenting precision, pressing advantage without overextension. Mara watched the energy maps unfold, every trajectory, every projected collision, every adaptive maneuver coalescing into a fluid, unstoppable cadence. The galaxy could only observe as human influence propagated outward, turning once safe zones into strategic opportunities, and transforming every challenge into a demonstration of resilience, creativity, and calculated audacity. Humanity had become a force not measured by firepower, technology, or numbers, but by its ability to reshape circumstance itself. Mara allowed herself a rare, quiet moment of reflection. The collective might regroup. Other species might mobilize. Yet the humans had proven one unassailable truth. When they decide to act, the rules of engagement no longer apply. The galaxy could raise threat levels, deploy fleets, and flood the void with calculations, but nothing could predict what a human would do next. And in that uncertainty, power resided. The remnants of the collective's fleet had regrouped, battered but not yet defeated, and believed themselves capable of containing the humans. They underestimated one simple truth: humans did not conform to expectations. Every formation, every calculated strike, every defensive pattern they tried to impose was dismantled before it could be executed. Mara's fleet moved like a single organism, weaving unpredictably through the fractured expanse of the battlefield, turning each environmental hazard, the remnants of destroyed ships, drifting asteroids, energy surges into tactical advantage. Where the galaxy saw limits, the humans saw vectors, leverage, and opportunity. On the bridge of the Resolute, Mara issued commands with a calm authority, her voice threading through the hum of power systems and sensor feedback. Engineers adjusted shield harmonics in real time, creating overlapping fields that absorbed energy and redirected it toward enemy clusters. Tactical officers anticipated enemy maneuvers before they occurred, not through calculation alone, but through instinct honed in the crucible of countless engagements. Human adaptability operated on multiple layers: physical, cognitive, and strategic, allowing them to exploit chaos with precision and audacity. Every movement amplified the confusion of the collective, turning their strength into weakness. The collective's flagship launched a desperate sequence of coordinated strikes, targeting Mara's vessel and the escorts in unison. Hypervelocity plasma arcs converged, projectiles saturated shields, and autonomous intercept drones maneuvered aggressively. But the humans had anticipated this escalation. Escort vessels synchronized with Mara's flagship, shifting trajectories to redirect incoming fire, while drones created energy interference patterns, causing some projectiles to collide mid-space. The volley intended to destroy became a mechanism to fracture enemy cohesion, leaving ships isolated and vulnerable. Human ingenuity converted what should have been devastation into tactical opportunity. Observation. Platforms across nearby systems recorded the anomaly, each new data point reinforcing the same conclusion. Humans could not be predicted. Automated threat assessments upgraded in real time, escalating to maximum levels. Every civilization that had previously classified Earth as non-threatening now recalculated its galactic strategy. The humans were not merely surviving. They were dominating the battlefield in ways no model, no algorithm, and no precedent had accounted for. Mara's quiet defiance had become doctrine, improvisation under pressure, audacity under threat, and an unstoppable cadence that no force could anticipate. Within the fleet, crew members operated as extensions of one another, each decision enhancing the collective impact. Engineers rerouted damaged power grids to amplify weapons. Navigators plotted trajectories that turned environmental hazards into offensive tools. And gunners executed strikes with timing that seemed preternatural. The humans were leveraging every factor enemy miscalculations, environmental variables, and their own adaptability to create outcomes that the galaxy's most advanced systems could not simulate. Every attack the enemy launched, every maneuver they attempted, became part of the humans' unstoppable rhythm. The collective's command algorithms began to fail under the strain of unpredictability. Red alerts flashed across consoles, automated systems issued contradictory orders, and ships collided under miscalculated maneuvers. The humans were no longer merely a threat. They had become the defining variable of the battle. Humanity's audacity had forced the galaxy to recognize an immutable truth. When humans decide to act, chaos itself bends to their will, and even the most advanced strategies falter before their ingenuity as the Resolute surged forward. Mara's voice carried across the comms, calm but resolute. "Hold my beer," she said once more, and every human vessel responded in perfect unison. This was not bravado. It was a declaration. The galaxy had witnessed what happens when humans refuse limits, defy expectation, and impose their will. And in that moment, every observer, every adversary, every distant system understood. The humans were no longer a species to be underestimated. The collective's fleet, already fractured, now teetered on the edge of total collapse. Every maneuver they attempted, every tactic they deployed, was anticipated or, better yet, turned against them. Mara's fleet moved with fluid precision, improvising through debris fields, energy surges, and collapsing asteroids. Each human vessel acted in perfect unison, yet independently capable of making decisions that defied prediction. What was supposed to be containment became an unraveling, a cascading failure amplified by the very systems designed to enforce control. The flagship, Resolute, cut through the chaos like a blade of inevitability. Mara's commands were deliberate and unyielding, her voice calm amidst the storm. Engineers rerouted energy to shields and weapons in moments, creating dynamic fields that absorbed enemy fire and redirected it at critical targets. Navigators exploited the gravitational distortions left by collapsing structures, turning them into traps that neutralized pursuing vessels. Gunners struck with preternatural timing, disabling key systems on ships that had once seemed invulnerable. Every action compounded the enemy's disarray. Across the galaxy, automated monitoring systems were overwhelmed. Alerts flashed, threat levels maxed out, and predictive algorithms failed repeatedly. The humans had become an anomaly too complex to simulate, too unpredictable to contain. Observers recorded the carnage with disbelief. A species dismissed for its fragility had imposed a new law of engagement. Humanity did not merely survive under impossible odds. It turned every disadvantage into advantage, every threat into opportunity, and every moment of chaos into a tool of domination. In the final moments of the confrontation, Mara orchestrated a decisive maneuver. Using the collective energy of the fleet, she created a cascading chain reaction. Enemy shields overloaded, power grids shorted, and ships became inert, drifting helplessly through space. What had been calculated as inevitable human defeat transformed into the irreversible collapse of the collective's tactical authority. Where they had sought to dominate, they had been undone by ingenuity, adaptability, and audacious resolve. As the dust of plasma arcs and energy disruptions settled, the humans remained unscathed, their formation intact and victorious. Mara surveyed the battlefield with quiet satisfaction. No celebration, no exultation, simply recognition of the truth the galaxy had been forced to accept. Humanity had proven itself capable of defying expectation, surviving against overwhelming odds, and imposing its will where others presumed control. The phrase "hold my beer" had become doctrine, a symbol of inevitable audacity and unstoppable adaptation. The galaxy, observing through distant arrays, processed the irreversible truth. The humans were no longer a minor variable in the cosmic equation. They were a defining factor, a force to be reckoned with, a species whose actions could no longer be predicted, contained, or dismissed. Any who underestimated them would face the consequences. Humanity's presence was now a universal warning. Engage at your peril. For when humans act, the rules themselves bend, and the impossible becomes inevitable. Mara's voice cut through the coms one last time. Calm, commanding, final. Hold my beer. And in that simple declaration, the galaxy understood. The humans had won, not through overwhelming numbers, not through advanced technology, but through cunning, audacity, and the unstoppable cadence of ingenuity.